Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining the JS Mindset Weekly Call. My name's Denny, and today is Saturday, August 17th, 2019. On the call today are the boys, Jim Sinclair, Bill Holter, and the famous Dave. Listen, thank goodness Congress is in recess until after Labor Day. Truthfully, I'm not looking forward to their return to D.C. because the noise level is only going to be ratcheting up. I think this is the noisiest month of August I can ever remember with Congress in recess. The yield curve has top-of-mind awareness in the press, and the volatility in the markets this week surely shows a good dose of panic might be in play. The feedback this week from listeners continues, and we really do appreciate your questions. I'm not sure we understood them all, and we're going to try to take a swing at those. The answers will come to many of the questions throughout the conversation today with Jim, Bill, and Dave. Hopefully this will help all of us to see a bigger picture surrounding your comments and questions. Always remember, we're not giving investment advice. We're trying to give you another perspective of the economic world to add to your own perspective just so you can be prepared for what might certainly be some very trying times ahead. As always, thanks for investing in the premium side of JS Mindset. There were a lot of new postings this week on the site, and I just encourage you to set aside some time at least a couple times a week, just for going back to the site, both sides, the free side and the premium side, for reading. There's great information there posted. Jim, a lot of investors are discovering the opportunities in the mining sector for gold, and what seems obvious to so many of us is literally a light switch event for people who are new to gold and silver. I read this piece this week from a new analyst that was just gaga over the junior miners and exploratory mines. It was like he invented it himself. Scarcity of new mines and the time it takes to get the mine to production were two factors that this writer suggested that mining stocks could be really set to take off from here. Jim, talk to us about this time issue to get a mine into production. How long does it take?
Average from the day that you discover or know that there's gold on your asset to production. A significant mine, 8 years. It doesn't move fast. Now we're way advanced and could be producing in 8 months from throwing the go switch, but normally it's a considerable amount of time. That's what Bulyanhulu took. The other point made is, have you heard of any great new discoveries or great new potential mines being built anywhere by anybody?
Not a one.
The answer is no. Okay. The other point is that the industry has changed significantly, and that comes with your communication age and the ability to use corruption to gain a foothold on the asset, and to leave with all the extractables, and to leave a hole the size that you can see from the moon, and to pay the country close to nothing is over. And all of the mineral-rich countries want a reasonable share of what they have, and there is no really great hurry amongst the in-place majors to make that shift. They've just had it too good too long. So you not only don't have any outcrops left. That was the days when you hunted for gold by looking at what rocks were already showing out of the ground. You have very, very little new discoveries. The cost of exploration done correctly is multiples of what it ever was before. The physical market is thin. Having just discovered the gold exploration companies, I hope that this writer is taking into consideration the 2,000 of them when broke in the last 4 years. So I think the entire field has changed. And I think pretty soon you can take a pen and go right through the exploration companies. And I think a new name might be something like an intermediary, meaning something that already has proven significant resources and reserves, is in a position to begin to build and to benefit from that, that has used methods and ways that didn't exist years ago, in terms of bringing the cost of production down, and actually something we live by, and that is that all great mines were not found. All great mines were developed. And that's exactly what we're finding out by the extreme deep drilling we're doing. And because the entire company, including the tech side, has a strong feeling about the worth of gold, a new technique is being looked at where you don't split the low grade and high grade and concern yourself with that as a method of hedging, but rather you set yourself up like a vacuum cleaner, and over the entire width of the mineralization you don't leave a thing. And although that may make very little sense at today's price of gold, if we are 25% correct, that's going to make the gold producer literally a money factory. So there's even a new approach towards mining, which has always sort of been around, but in a very antiquated nature, meaning you always tried to get most of the vein out without bringing too much dirt and other stuff up with you. And even in South Africa, the drillers, underground drillers, were bonused by the amount of the gold versus waste they brought up. But the way we're looking at it, I mean, we're going through widths of close to 200 meters, and what Uli is planning is to leave nothing there. So it's in a way, we've been very instrumental in changing what the mining business is all about, from treating the countries well and sharing, to using the most modern technology around. I think what he's discovered doesn't exist. In other words, I just don't believe. You have to be extraordinarily fortunate to find the one in, let's say, 1,000 that is left, that is in a position to be able to quite quickly benefit. And I firmly believe that, I don't want to hurt his feelings, but the junior mining industry doesn't exist anymore. And
after watching this for a while, Jim, I think what's going to happen is once that one mine, whether it's yours or somebody else's, is discovered, proven, and absolutely verified, it will spread like wildfire. You won't have to call anybody. It will all of a sudden it'll be out there.
You don't have to wait long for that. I mean, we're through pre-feasibility, and we're doing feasibility on the underground now, with the plans of opening the pit right away with a ramp to the underground and using the pit as the bank, which answers a question of previous discussion. How do you stand money-wise, and what do you need to be liquid enough to continue to operate? The answer to that is open the pit and don't even worry about it.
Yeah, you got to have production. Hey, Bill, I heard a term this week that I'd always associated with oil, but never with gold. Bill, that term is peak gold. South Africa has mined half of the world's gold over the last century, and now they've lost that distinction to Ghana in Africa. But the fact of the matter is that South Africa can't mine as much gold anymore because it's not there like it used to be. So any thoughts on this terminology of peak gold and what it means to the miners and to the physical markets?
As far as what it means to the physical market, it means production has peaked. And you saw production peak, I think, 2016. 2016, 2017, in that time frame. So what that means is you're not going to have the production coming to the market at an ever greater rate. The production's going to actually, or the supply is going to actually decline. And as I see it, that production decline or the supply decline is is happening at the same time that demand is increasing.
And the price is not going to influence that, Bill. Double the price.
No,
right.
If you double the price, you would not have production would not all of a sudden start ramping up. That's not the nature of mining. You could see that in oil production because you have wells that are capped or throttled back that can be opened up, or the production can be sped up. But that's not the case in the mining industry.
And with the price of gold, not really friendly towards the increase in the cost of production of many companies. They've been high grading, meaning that what they've done over the last 4 or 5 years is mine primarily the best grades they have to maintain profitability. And that means that along comes the bull market. What do you got left? Low grade. And low grade means less gold. And the combination is that we're looking at a commodity, one of the few commodities, and that's why it is a standard, that isn't going to be significantly affected in terms of supply by even a wild variation in price. And that takes us back to China and Russia operating in gold as a political thesis and as a strategic plan, not what people think every day that the market is manipulated for profit. Oh yeah, there's hangers-on all the time trying to making profits, and some of them very good at it. But the ups and downs in the gold market are more for facilitating accumulation than they are for making a profit between a $100 profit on a good-sized piece of gold. Now, not that there isn't people doing that, but that's not the primary influence of the market. Primary influence of the market is that gold maintains value. The gold is a standard of value. And in order to be a standard, you can't be expandable. Okay? If you're expandable, then this thing that you want to stay at one level will expand and contract. And that can't back a currency or be a senior reserve asset. And I think we're going into an entirely new definition of the role that gold plays in the monetary system. And this is part and parcel of this huge thing that we've been talking about and trying to get people prepared for it, and that is a defined change in the level of social, economic, and political life that we as dollar-based have come to assume will always exist.
I want to explain something I saw today. I was in an outdoor event here in flyover country, and maybe a couple 100,000 people were at the event, and the clouds started to darken up, and you could see a few people were watching those clouds, and they just got up and left and went for cover. Then the announcement came from public address, and it said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a terrible storm coming this way. The radar is showing red rain, orange rain, purple rain, and it's going to be a toad strangler." I mean, just literally get out of the stands and go. Literally half the people stayed in the stands. They didn't have rain gear. They didn't have anything. And then finally, all hell broke loose, and here comes the rain and everything. And then and only then did the people get out of the stands. What I think you have seen in the gold markets is when people could see the clouds for themselves, they went out and got gold and started preparing for the coming calamity. But even when other people were warned, the storm is literally upon them, and they're just sitting there. I believe that when the Chi comes, or when the Russians flip the switch and say it's going to be a gold man's world or a gold person's world, that's when everybody's going to realize that they should have left the stands and found shelter. And I don't know when that's going to be, Jim and Bill.
It sounds to me like the people that will sit in the stands and not move are your millenniums, snowflakes, and geeks.
It was unbelievable to watch. We were broadcasting from the side, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, how stupid can these people be? But
beyond your wildest belief to make a good.
Hey, Denny, you're preaching to the choir here.
I know.
We're trying to get
for years and
years
years,
of the choir
don't want to
online.
listen to us.
But the people who are listening now, probably 90% of them have already taken positions. But maybe they can help some other people.
Yes. Current listeners, yes, but you could talk to the average person, and their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
Well, the only way I can talk to the average person, Bill, is by asking them how you'd like to be in Texas in one of your floods. Okay. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. And there's something wonderful about having a bag that has change of clothes and sustenance and money, etc. The way that I can get some attention is to point to Mother Nature. Then I try and turn the subject towards something I firmly believe in, and that is economic law has not been repealed. Management of prospective economics, we named that. But I personally never expected it to be as outrageously successful as it was. And as you and I were talking before, now it seems that the tone of MSM is anything but extraordinarily positive as compared to a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago. So we might be entering a period of negative mope. And if positive rallying sent the stock markets to these levels, what do you think negative rallying will do? I mean, negative talk, negative outlook, Macy-type earnings.
Yeah, and there's a purpose to that, Jim.
What do you see as a purpose, Bill?
Have Trump not reelected.
That's the feeling I get. I don't think you can stop the guy, because you go and look at that rally he just had yesterday. You got 11,000 people sitting in there and 2,000 out. There's never been a monetary conference that ever got anywhere near that, even the New Orleans conference. And Trump has never stopped campaigning. In other words, and the alternative looks like the circus where the little car drives up, the door opens, and 400 people run up.
I want to ask David.
I believe him. The United States will never voluntarily accept socialism.
I don't think that will happen. David, I tried to reach out to you by phone, but I kept getting the Witness Protection Agency. Bill's given me the new number, so next week I'll be able to call you ahead of time. But I wanted to point out that I think that Iran and Trump will ultimately make a deal of sorts. Iran has the Chinese and Russians to stand up to Trump, but the sanctions that they are enduring are still biting. Trump even called out France this week or last week, basically, and told them to stop interfering in Trump's attempts to make a deal with Iran to avoid a shooting war. The latest thing I saw, Dave, was Paul Ryan is now the emissary for the United States, and the neocons have basically been kicked out of the negotiations. Now, although you and I have different perspectives on this one, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on whether you think Trump can indeed pull off getting the Iranians back to the negotiating table. What do you think, Dave?
I think his chances of that are zero unless he pulls down his pants and admits that he was wrong from day one. They keep adding sanctions on top of sanctions on top of sanctions now to Iranian officials. We tried to block the tanker from being released from Gibraltar. I can't agree with that statement at all. Iran would be foolish to make a deal with the United States. They already tried it once. We saw how it went. The hardliners didn't want the deal that was made several years ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago. And I'm in agreement with them, not because I'm in agreeing with Iran. I mean, before we address anything going on in the Middle East regarding anything regarding missiles and nuclear weapons, we need to talk about Israel. Because you can't be barking up my butt when my next-door neighbor is stockpiling them, and I know that they got the technology from the United States. The fact that Israel got the technology from the United States is common knowledge. I sent you an article over a week ago that clearly points out that Promise Software was used to steal a lot of things from governments around the world. Promise Software is easy to look up for listeners. I'm not going to post articles about it. Look it up. Promise Software. It goes back forever.
It's PROMIS.
Okay. That being said, Denny, see, I look at this as the game is up. The game is up. We're out of friends. I've tried to emphasize this to listeners. Other than Saudi Arabia, which is the most abusive human rights country in the world, Israel is our only other friend. I mean, I just don't see Iran buckling. Not a chance. The sanctions are biting. They lost millions of citizens in the war against Iraq. I don't see it. I have not seen Donald cut a deal with any of these countries that he keeps tweeting about. I look around. Kim Jong-un is still shooting missiles off. I mean, we didn't get a deal with China. Everybody swore, he was going to get a deal with China. President Jinping's going to buckle. He's going to buckle. Not a chance. We started the color revolutions in Hong Kong. Look it up. We have started those. We're backing them. It's going to end, and I hope it doesn't end ugly. But if it does, we'll have nobody to blame but ourselves. So I just don't see deals happening, Denny. Our days of making deals and bullying people are over. The United States citizens are going to have to get used to dealing with some of what they dished out for the last 50 years, and that's going to come with a currency collapse, a devaluation of our lifestyle, and unfortunately, that's just how I see it, and I'm prepared for it. I don't want to see it happen. I hope for the best, but prepare for the worst every day.
Hey, Denny.
Yes, sir?
Since when is Paul Ryan not a deep state neocon?
I don't see him as a neocon. I don't see him in the same camp as the neocons. You might have more information. I just have not seen him in that vein.
I think an important overriding point is nobody wants anybody else's territory. Maybe China would take Hong Kong and Taiwan, but in the South China Sea. But in the great scheme of things, everything has changed. So when we discuss war, what comes to people's minds are the documentaries of World War I and II, not recognizing that we are in World War III. But World War III is power, purely economic. And the stratagem that has been developed by those that oppose each other is heavily weighted on King Dollar has no clothes on. So there's the good news and the bad news. The good news is I don't really think we're going to have Chinese soldiers billeting in your house. But the question is, will you own your house? And so what we try and do is, through good conversation, logic, a little bit of shock from time to time, is to wake up our listeners to the need to simply be ready, be prepared. And being prepared is economic, psychological, okay? It runs the entire gamut to spirituality. It's that you've got the inner strength to handle change. And that in change, you don't have to starve. You can actually thrive. So if we have a goal, it's to prepare people to thrive as this worldwide economic change takes place. Wall Street and the New York Stock Exchange are an example. That's like the Gobi Desert, and the Silk Road is a good indication of the future. You go to Beijing, you come in on it's a eight lane highway Everything, the grass is mowed, everything is perfect. You come in to Kennedy Airport, you think that it's the day after a nuclear event. They don't have potholes now. They got pot craters. And if you stand long enough in one spot, you get spray painted. So what we're trying to wake up the listeners to is a very broad amount of courage. Because it takes courage to say, look, there's change and I need to be prepared for change. It's very easy for those guys to stay in the stands because it's not raining. It's dark out there, but who knows? And probably somebody just wants to get more seats in the stands so the loudspeaker's lying. But that example you gave of everybody sitting there until the lightning started to take the stands down is exactly what I foresee, and I think my friends foresee, in the market and economic sense. And
Bill, I want to look at the last couple of weeks. I've been watching the cash markets and gold, and I'm trying to understand what must certainly be desperation in the heads, not just the heads, the souls of the bankers and bank-sponsored traders that are shorting this market. They must believe that they're going to start winning again and being able to start driving down the price of gold. But then all of a sudden, every time it goes below 1,500, we see this whale come in, and it pops back up. It seems like delusion, almost mental illness. But I've never been a trader in that type of a battle. Bill, what do you think the traders are thinking about gold right now?
We should talk about gold and silver because it's two different. You're seeing two different activities. On COMEX, with COMEX Gold, the open interest has just continually increased. In other words, they're trying to meet demand with naked contracts. But just over the last 10 days or so, you've seen, in silver, you've seen the open interest no longer expand. In other words, the traders are not willing to sell naked contracts. They're actually declining the open interest, which shows traders are trying to close their short position. So, from a fundamental standpoint, silver definitely woke up. What was it, 3-4 weeks ago? And you've seen a couple dollar move in it. And I think what you're seeing is the mentality has completely changed. It's no longer sell the rallies; it's buy the dips.
Amen to that. And
David,
that again, it's not speculation. That is a strategy for
it's accumulation.
As the accumulation realizes it's mature and not being as successful as it was before. Where did the $40 drops go that we used to have every third day?
David, you sent me some pieces this week, and aside from the fact I have a full-time job, I'm reading them. But they take me forever to get through sometimes, and I realized just how the root system for the deep state has penetrated every single entity one can imagine. It was the piece about, for lack of a better word, the Jewish mafia. And the piece talked about the tentacles of the elite, that they are always in the shadows and allowing the likes of the Epsteins of the world to do all their dirty work. Now, that being said, I've also read that the deep state is on its heels in not only the Epstein pedophilia horror show, but also in the banking industry with Boris Johnson and Trump taking on the European Central Bank. Dave, there's a lot of optimism that the deep state can be taken down, but after reading a couple of the articles you sent me, I'm damn skeptical, son. Is it possible to take down the deep state, Dave?
No, it's not, because the deep state is the existence of our country. So, again, Bill said it. The disease can't cure itself. And if we were to cure the disease, our country would cease to exist. I mean, the depth of corruption in our country is something that I can't even get my head around, and I've been studying it for 30 years plus.
Worse than that.
Everything is intertwined. And what I keep coming back to is no matter how deep it is in this country, it's worldwide. So, for lack of a better word, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's the problem with man in general. And our system has been designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many, to the point that people think I joke when I say we live in the Matrix. I really would not say that that's not possible. Everything is so controlled. Everything. Somebody has figured everything out, be it the Central Intelligence Agency, be it NSA, be it DARPA. There's just groups of the brightest, smartest, in some cases the most evil people on the planet who have researched everything to the nth degree and figured out how to make it so interconnected that you can't ever unravel it, because like a spider web, every single component is holding the whole web together, and the only way to really destroy it is to vacuum it up. So, I hate to be negative. It's not that I'm negative. I have just studied this, and as the things that I've sent you, Denny, I could freak people out with how deep the corruption is, just that I could find. And as I say to my wife, if I could find this stuff, which most people have no idea about, I would guess I can't know more than 2%. If I could honestly say I know 2% of the worldwide corruption, that would be a stretch. So just think about how bad this has to be, Denny.
Dave, don't sell yourself short. In the short time I've known you, I can see you could find the fly shit and the pepper. I mean, you're a pretty good researcher, son.
Did you see this just the last couple of days? The NSA, the surveillance, they're asking for it to be permanent.
Yeah, they're going to reauthorize it.
Yes.
Well, if they're asking permission, it says to me they're already doing it.
Well, of course they're doing it, but they want it to be legal. They want to have permission to do.
Maybe they need
Dad,
FISA
can I
warrants.
smoke cigarettes and drink beer? No,
not to rain on your parade here, but did you also see that one of the congresswomen, I think it was a woman, maybe in California, wanted the age of consent to be 10 years old?
Yeah,
I mean,
but you got to say age of consent for what?
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. Okay. So
exactly correct. Anything.
Yeah, Dave. Here are the eight. There, I read a book a while back called Charlie Robinson called "The Octopus of Global Control," and he talked about military, governmental, covert, physical, financial, media, spiritual. In other words, even the church, even our faith-based and scientific. Those were the 8 tentacles that are so controlled by deep state that he said the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. And I thought that was spot on.
Yes.
One thing I think that even that is not taking a look at is to recognize that we used to have recessions or contractions once every 4 years, market-wise and business-wise. And what that did in terms of economic contribution was that it let the steam out of the pressure cooker, so the pressure cooker didn't explode. Now, the new level of greed has for all practical purposes eliminated, as in 2007 through 10, the valve letting the steam off. So I'd like to add to that although the analysis of all of the tentacles of control are correct, I'm just a little too old-fashioned to, at this point in time, say there is no economic law. It doesn't exist. It does exist. Except now, instead of being once every 4 years, maybe we're back to the biblical jubilee, but it is going to explode.
It cannot be held back. It's like trying to use your garden hose to push dirt up your driveway. You can get a lot of water there, but all of a sudden then the water overwhelms it. No matter how much pressure you use, it's coming back at you, Jim. And it's going to come back to them.
Yeah, Mother Nature and economic law exist. And besides that, we have the most degraded people with a knowledge of psychology that exceeds anything that existed before. And that knowledge of psychology is called spin doctors. And spin doctors developed into absolute confirmed liars. The louder and the more often they lied, the more people stayed in the stadium with this enormous black cloud, and you can see lightning coming, and they just didn't believe it. Well, you don't have to have 20/20 vision to see that black cloud coming, and you don't have to be Einstein to figure out why it's coming, and you also don't have to think too far to recognize all central banks are out of tools. All that's left is fiscal stimulation, which can only be powered by an ultimate act of debt monetization, buying your own debt. Therefore, hyperinflation must come. So I'm a firm believer that you can kick Mother Nature around all you want, but when she decides to give you a kick, it's going to be abuse. And I believe we're in it right now. And I firmly believe the next 5 years changes the world. And what I'd love to accomplish is that one listener that says, hey, maybe I should have a little more of this, or maybe I should have a nice second home if I could afford it somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Or at least I should know all the money in the world. And wouldn't it be nice if I really realized that you don't save money in a bank, you give your money to the bank, because legally you become a lender without unsecured lender.
Well, Jim, people are figuring that out now with negative interest rates.
Well, the question I asked you earlier today, what's to stop them from going really negative?
Well, that destroys the system. If I could, I'd like to go back. I think it was, 1984, 1985, when Reagan changed the tax laws pertaining to depreciation, debt, etc. From that point forward, if you think about it, prior to that, every 3 to 5 years there was a recession. I mean, you could count on it. It was in perfect rhythm.
Calendarize it.
From that point forward, they aborted a recession in '86, which would have been brought about by oil crashing. We had a mini recession in '90, and then not another, or '91, and then not another recession until 2001, and not another recession until 2008-9, and here we are 10 years later. So that cycle, that rhythm has been broken, and the reason it was broken is because central bankers realized that they really can't allow a recession to do what it was meant to do. Recessions, like you said, Jim, were meant to allow steam out of the pressure cooker so it wouldn't blow up. And what they've done is they've continually added more and more debt. In the words of the late, great Richard Russell, inflate or die.
That's where they stand now, Bill.
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
You agree?
They've inflated, and they've avoided recessions when, all along we should have had, 5 or 6 recessions since then, and we've had 2 or 3. So they've stretched this out by using debt, and here we are, like you're saying, Jim, the next 5 years are going to be hell on earth.
Well, I think the whole concept of central banks will change because their toolbox is empty.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
For central banks to remain central banks, they've got to be able to function as central banks. They can't.
Bill,
QE is not possible outside of hyperinflation. And the only thing left is you're starting to hear it everywhere in Germany, fiscal stimulation. But that all cranks itself right back to printing paper. So we're with Denny and looking back at nobody leaving the stands. And what I'm saying is, at least if you're listening and sitting in the stands, recognize black clouds are not right now black swans. but they're so thick it looks like the migration of the Canadian geese. And you're not going to hold that back without a tool set. You're going to have to reset. And once the geniuses figure out what the reset is, the market will figure out what the reset really is.
Bill, we got an interesting comment from a listener who's in the financial industries, and there are several. His name was Donald, and he asked specifically what hypothetical debt issuance in cryptocurrency might look like. His name was Donald, and he says in the financial community, and he says that he doesn't own any cryptos. He'd rather be in something that was shiny, but he believes that they might be the future of economics in some form or another. Bill, how do you think we might see some sort of crypto or digital currency with or without gold as a backing? What do you think this is going to look like when it comes out?
That's what central banks and the tax man definitely want to do. They want to be able to track absolutely everything. And I think I responded to him to his email by I guess I asked a question about do you really want to live in a system where they can shut you off? In other words, they can flip a switch and you're out of business. They can invade your account. Now, the IRS can do that now, but they've got to go through an institution. But if you've got a crypto system, basically you can be your life can be shut off like a light switch.
They are doing that in China now, brother.
Right.
How much different is a crypto system than a U.S. Treasury bill? Think about it. Is a U.S. Treasury bill anything? Is it backed by something fundamental and tangible?
It's backed by the wonderful full faith and credit of the U.S.
And that will be the new
and
that will be the new cryptocurrency, backed exactly by those words with
right.
With a name that sounds like a U.S. Treasury bill. But the central banks can't allow the general public to benefit by it, or the central banks won't benefit by it. They've got to create a new tool because they don't have one. And I think what we're just discussing is the skeletal discussion of the new tool, the new treasury instrument. And in fact, if we think about it, we already got a cryptocurrency in terms of a piece of paper that's worthless that everybody believes has some kind of worth or ability to maintain value. It doesn't.
David, an interesting twist in the drama that's going on in Hong Kong. I think one of the organizers, and the protest leader, I think his name was Sun, but I don't know, he recommended that people pull out all of the money that they might have in Chinese banks. And that's the first time I've ever heard of this monetary tactic. And that is, talk about guerrilla warfare. But Dave, how do you think mainland China will react to this if all of a sudden all the people in Hong Kong start pulling out from one particular bank or two particular banks? Whoa.
Okay, let's start with, it's my belief that the protesters are mostly kids.
Yeah, it looks like it, Dave.
You don't have the hard-working middle class, that Hong Kong even has a middle class. But things in Hong Kong are expensive. I mean, rents, off the charts. Whether or not they have a legit grievance, the way they're going about it is absolutely an orchestrated mess. Now they're out, oh, we're sorry we disrupted everybody's life. If you tried that in America, the cops would come in and gun you down. I mean, Occupy Wall Street got destroyed, and that was a peaceful protest by any stretch of the imagination. They weren't occupying JFK and shutting down Chicago's airport. That being said, these kids I don't think have any money to pull out of the banks to begin with. So, it's just, again, that's obviously something that I would say a handler dreamt up and told him to do. Secondly, businesses just can't do that. They have accounts, as you know, Denny. We need to do business. I mean, we need to do business tomorrow morning. We need to do business Monday morning. And I can't be playing games with my bankers because this isn't a game. This is our livelihood. So, I think that's more of a stunt. It plays great with the press. And again, the press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and all the major mainstream medias, they can't get enough of this Hong Kong protest. Yet the Yellow Vests, which truly was middle France, couldn't get coverage in this country to save their life. And all you got to do is Google all the press coverage from the Yellow Vest protest, and the press coverage that came out of the United States or mainstream media was minimal. Yet this Hong Kong thing, oh my God, they're suppressing the children's rights. Please. I mean, I have no use for these color revolutions. These were invented by the CIA. They go back to Yugoslavia. We've been pulling this nonsense for a long time. It's like, oh, you better hands off and treat them with golden kid gloves. I mean, in France, people were getting shot point blank in the face with beanbags after beanbags. They were beaten. Hong Kong cops, in my opinion, have acted incredibly restrained, and I'm the last person in the world to praise a police organization.
Because they don't want another Tiananmen Square.
Well, and again, I don't know how much of Tiananmen Square was actual and how much of it was, again, staged for the media for us to gobble down.
True.
That's a whole other can of worms we won't have to go down. But I've just learned anything that plays in MSM is what they want you to know. So the minute, and a perfect example is the Epstein death. Oh, it's the suicide. It's a suicide. Did anybody see the pictures of the ex-cop he was locked up with the first time? The guy made Hulk Hogan look like a little girl. You locked Jeffrey Epstein up in a cell with this guy who's a convicted ex-cop. I mean, again, I saw the numbers, and I can't believe that anybody actually believes the MSM story that he committed suicide because, again, as I said to you, the story is Barr's going to get to the bottom of this. Why don't we get to the bottom of who gave Jeffrey Epstein the first teaching job at Dalton? I believe
Barr's
it was
father.
his father. So that's how deep this state goes. If Barr really was going to be Attorney General, his first call should have been made when Epstein got arrested to the warden of that prison and said, I want a 24-hour team of armed guards on that man, and I want to make sure he gets to trial, and if anything happens to him, your ass is mine. Oh, no, I'm going to call him up and transfer him after the barn door after Epstein's death. The most high-profile prisoner in the United States at this present time, and you let him die on your watch, and now you're appalled and going to get to the bottom of this. Oh, my God. The public eats this nonsense up. I can't believe it. I almost have a gag attack when I see this stuff.
Officially a suicide now.
Officially.
Yep.
Officially. Kennedy officially was shot by one lone gunman who also happened to get shot. I mean, come on. People, I can't stress enough to people, almost everything they know is a lie that was told to them and taught to them. I am Mr. Don't believe anything they tell you. Research it. Figure it out for yourself. Denny, as you can see, it's the stuff that I send you. It's not like it's from some secret vault. It just requires people to shut their TV off, cancel their TV, get rid of their smartphone, and learn how to start connecting the dots here. Because this stuff goes deep. This stuff goes really deep. And if you really want to help yourself, as Jim keeps talking about preparing, the first step is to mentally understand how this chess game is constructed against you. And it is against you. It's not like I'm a China lover or a Russia lover or an Iran lover. I'm just pointing out the stuff that I know. What goes on in their particular country really isn't my concern. If I've got to figure out what's going on in Romania, well, I could probably tell you, yeah, Romania is pretty much controlled by the United States, along with the secret prisons that we had there. But my point being is people have to get out of the box and really learn how to figure things out for themselves. Because soon, if they shut down the Internet any more than they already have, you're going to have trouble finding this stuff out. Several of the articles I tried to send you, Denny, I get that 404 error. Oh, no longer exists. That means It's been scrubbed.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. But, Dan, I don't want to eat up time here, so let's move on unless you...
Well, I got
add the Google blowers in there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
The filters and algorithms are in there.
Yes.
Right. Can I jump in one more second here, because it's something that I just saw an interview with Richard Cage from 9/11 Truth Movement, and again, we've talked about the fact that the Fire District of Franklin and Munson are now joining this. But he even said, and this is how you know Google and Facebook, they talk about, we're going to take down the tech companies. They're filtering the 9/11 search results. I've tried to find certain videos from James that I know James Corbett did, and they're shut down. You can't get to them.
You have to go directly to Corbett's. You have to be a subscriber.
Yes. So, and again, when you're seeing Google and Facebook and Twitter shutting down the 9/11 Truth Movement, who are they doing that for? Well, I mean, really, who are they doing it for? Obviously, they're doing it in service of the government, which I'm clearly behind 9/11. There's no way Building 7 fell into its footprint all by itself. I mean, go through the most recent one. He just did an interview on Corbett Report. You got to check it out. It's insane. Building 7 could not have fallen down. It had to have been blown up. And hopefully in early September, they've got a big report coming out that is just going to prove this beyond any stretch of the imagination. So, but I don't hold my breath for that ever to come out. We're going on 20 years.
David, I have had a lot more luck on my searches with DuckDuckGo. It still filters, but not quite as bad as Google. If you try it, you might like that one. Jim, your last question of the day. Bill Gross's old partner, Mohammed El-Arian, is now working for Allianz. Some people call it Alliance, but it's a big company. It's a financial company, Allianz, and he stated that we're in an era of deglobalization. I had not heard that term. All I've heard is globalization. So El-Arian, he comes out with his term. He says that President Trump has purposely stalled the process of globalization by repatriating wealth with his trade policy, blocking exfiltration with Main Street policy, creating new and modern economic alliances that are based on bilateral reciprocity. Instead of multinational, he's doing things one-on-one with other nations. And finally, he's dismantling the Marshall Plan, the post-World War II plan of global trade and one-way tariffs. He's calling this deglobalization. Any thoughts on that one, Billy?
Bill?
Oh, that's for me?
No, I'm sorry. That was for Jim. I'm very sorry.
Globalization is a very interesting and varied title. True globalization is the spider web of financial connections between highly leveraged over-the-counter derivatives and out-of-control corporate debt. He may be right in what he perceives somebody would like to do, but you're never going to get that far. That process is not a process that could be executed without extreme disruption. So I'm not particularly sure that we're anything as much as we're moving into a new something. So I think he's a very intelligent man, and that's a lovely use of the English language. But it totally ignores the reality of the disruptive nature of trying to do anything like the euro, okay, or the growth of central banks when they have no tools. The type of deep globalization that could be successful is unthinkable. But a shift where the third world shifts power socially, economically, etc., that's not impossible. It's happening while we're talking. No, I don't agree with what I agree with the intellectual concept, but it is totally impractical. This monster from Jekyll Island is the green glob that you can't stop from consuming the earth. Well,
there is a wind at the back of deglobalization. I mean, you can see nationalism all over the world. And the reason nationalism has risen is simply economics. The middle class is, I mean, what more can you take from the middle class? The middle class is basically gone.
The only thing we have not heard is Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake." That's the only thing we haven't heard. Bill, this is the last question I have for you, and it comes from the Sprott site, and I think it was this week. And maybe you were the guy that turned me on to a fellow by the name of Brent Cook. He's a geologist investor in the junior mining sector, and he offered this advice. And honest to goodness, Bill and Jim and even you, Dave, I have heard you all say this. He said, now this is Brent Cook, the geologist investor. He says, position yourself in good projects with people you can trust, and if you know their business plan, when things turn around, they're going to perform really, really well. Bill, where have you heard that before?
I heard it from Jim years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So what you forecast all those, I guess it's years now, Jim. It's starting to come true. And whether it was a crystal ball or whether it was just common sense and your ability to see the future, when you have guys of Brent Cook's caliber basically parroting you, you know that you're on the right track.
Well, the plan is unraveling exactly as it was conceived of 16 years ago. And the selection of what Brent would like to is very limited. But if you do put together what he said, you have a sure winner.
Indeed. Well, Jim, since you're there, have you got anything else to add to today's call?
Well, only the point that we listeners as well as us doing this really have to ask ourselves a question, I believe, and that is, why are we doing it? And, it is a desire to help. It is a battle for between light and darkness. It is a desire to see a change by preserving people's abilities to prosper in life. But it's nothing like anything we can base on previous historical event. This is a play for absolute power. And I think we just have to understand where we stand in that development, which will take place, and know that it's happening as we speak, and the time frame for this entire change is 5 years.
All four of us will still be young men then.
Well, some of you will.
David, have you got anything more to add today?
No, Denny. Again, I'll just sum up what I try to say every week because, again, Jim and Bill are the financial experts. I try to just stick to what I know, and it's how to survive. And it's you have to learn to think for yourself. Anything that they are telling you, somehow they're trying to mislead you because this whole system is designed to make us into sheep for them. And again, I can't tell you enough, Danny, how much I do this, and I just hope I could instill in people the ability to do it for themselves.
Think for themselves.
Don't take spoon-fed information.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from a poisoned spoon.
Make up your own mind and have the courage to follow your conviction.
Yeah, it might be the easiest way to get what you think is real information, but it's not real information. You need to dig for yourself.
Bill, you got anything else?
Yeah, going back to what you were talking about, the guy from Sprott talking about.
Oh, Brent Cook?
Yeah. I wrote an article, and I'm thinking it was probably 4 months back, and I don't remember exactly the title. I think it was something like the ultimate gold call option.
Yes.
Best gold call option.
That was about 2 months ago.
Okay. Anyway, I would urge everybody to go back and reread that, because what I described is it's the ultimate gold call option. The ultimate gold call option has got to have leverage to the price of gold. And I described the perfect scenario as far as a miner is concerned. And take my description and overlay it on different companies and see which company I was talking about.
And you're going to find in there, Bill, the next group of beloved stocks that sell over $1,000 a share.
That's another prediction you've made, Jim, that the next $1,000 share is going to be a miner of some sort.
Going to be a miner, a progressive miner. There's only about 10 of them. So if you go through and look at the conduct of certain majors that really have grown organically, I think it's a slam dunk to figure out which ones are going to lead that pack.
As always, guys, thanks for your time on a Saturday. And to you as listeners, we appreciate you. Thanks for listening. We hope that you're learning. Certainly the four of us are learning something every week, but it's reinforcing decisions that we made years and years and years ago. We certainly send you our best. You can always forward questions through Bill. Try hard not to piss him off, because if he gets mad at me, and I'm just trying to make a radio show. So anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, guys. That was fun. See you next week.
It really was, and thank you guys for letting me be part of it. Okay?
You're the center of it, boss.
Well, I don't know.
Have a good weekend.
All right, boys.
Have a wonderful week.